In the spring of 1915, Ivan Mikhailovich Strakovsky, the Russian governor of Tiflis, present-day Tbilisi, Georgia, is distracted from his daily administration by extraordinary news. Knights await him in the courtyard of his palace. Indeed, several dozen warriors helmeted in iron, harnessed in leather and mail coats, armed with broadswords, round shields, and for some, a few ancient firearms, are gathered before the astonished eyes of Russian officials and Georgian employees. Accosting Strakovsky in a poor Caucasian dialect, they ask him bluntly, "Where is the war? We heard there was a war." Originating from a small, very isolated mountainous region located in the heart of the Caucasus, bordered to the south by Georgia and to the north by Chechnya and Ingushetia, the Khevsours were partially evangelized by Saint Nino in the first half of the 3rd century. By the end of the 12th century, their territory, Khevsureti, was vassalized by the Georgian Queen Tamar, 1160 to 1213, an astonishing Iron Lady who entered her country's history under the name of King Tamar the Great. Under the authoritarian reign of this sovereign descended from the legendary Bagratian dynasty, Georgia experienced territorial development it would never know again, when in 1915 their descendants would answer the Tsar's call, that is to say for them the Caesar's call, to wage war against the Sultan of the Turks and liberate Constantinople. Some would still display on their shield or sword the letters AMD for Ave Mater Dei, according to a custom much practiced among the Crusaders. When contemplating their guard at the frontiers of Christendom, one cannot help but think of Dino Buzzati's The Tartar Steppe, or the war in the Syrtis, and the timeless waiting for an enemy that never comes. For in reality, who would think of invading Khevsureti? Who would even think of seeking passage through it? The sparse population, only a few thousand persons, lived there in fortresses clinging to the mountainsides, hamlets, and modest fortified villages nestled at the bottom of the valleys. In a society without lord or nobility, the only recognized authorities are the clan chiefs, elected by their male kinfolk. Born warriors, the Khevsours practice a martial art of their own, the Kridoli, comprising fencing with 2 swords, fencing with a single sword and a small shield, wrestling and single-handed boxing, the other hand being bound in the belt. While the blood and some pieces of meat are offered to the holy martyr, the rest becomes the object of endless feasting, washed down with sanctified beer, brewed with barley from the mountains and capable of exceeding 15 degrees alcohol. For the occasion, ancient silver cups and goblets are brought out, engraved with crosses and religious signs. These practices, which had practically disappeared during the Soviet era, have reappeared with renewed vigor since the 1990s. The domestic life of this people is likewise marked by curious customs. Marriages were arranged in early childhood. However, tradition demanded that the groom forcibly abduct his bride, even if she and her family were perfectly satisfied with the planned union. For couples in love, outside of arranged marriage, there existed a strange usage. Indeed, the 2 young people could spend a night together, remaining clothed, without consummating anything on pain of death. History, however, does not mention how this abstinence was verified. Divorce in Khevsureti was common, owing notably to the numerous vendettas that frequently opposed clans and families, obliging spouses to separate to remain faithful to their blood. Polygamy, though uncommon, also existed, as did a form of polyandry, when in a community men outnumbered women of childbearing age. The wife gave birth alone, in a hut constructed for the occasion. Outside, during labor, the husband fired shots or made sword twirls to drive away spirits and demons from mother and child. Although officially Christian, the Khevsours bear given names that undoubtedly relate to a pagan tradition. Thus, boys are given names of animals: wolf, bear, eagle, fox, which are supposed to bring them the characteristics of strength, combativeness, speed, or cunning proper to their totem. The names given to girls in a rather rough society are surprisingly delicate: daughter of the sun, star of the day, son of my heart. Death is in keeping with the austere life of this mountain people. A Khevsour must not die under a roof, his spirit risking remaining imprisoned there. If ill or dying, he goes, or is carried, to the cemetery enclosure where he awaits death. The opening of roads under the Soviet regime, followed by the forced displacement of part of the population in the 1950s to work in the factories and collective farms of the plains, dealt a terrible blow to the Khevsour people. Certainly some of them returned to live in the valleys after the fall of communism, but demographic erosion seems inexorable. At a time when Westerners are passionate about the primitive peoples of Africa and elsewhere, it is not without use to recall the existence of these European communities disappearing in everyone's indifference. Who remembers men? Raspail wondered. But who will remember the Khevsours, the last Crusaders?